you ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn, hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 68th episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, part of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Daz, and I'm joined today, as always, by Mystic. Mystic, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
You playing a lot of Heroes this week?
Yeah, I've been cruising through it here and there, you know, playing some Maiev before she inevitably got nerfed.
Again today. Go figure, hey? Maybe this will be the last nerf that she'll have for a bit. Who knows? We also have a special guest this week, Trent Murray, Trent_esports on Twitter. Trent, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's exciting to be on the show that's not about esports. It'd be very weird to talk about things that aren't other people playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, you've guested for quite a few times on Troll and HGC, and you are the host of ELE, entry-level esports, that we have on our network as well. You're probably you and LiQuiuD are the two people that I think follow esports more than anybody else I know, probably unhealthily. So what have you been doing this week? You've been watching a lot of esports, playing some fighting games maybe with that joystick behind you?
Dude, it's been all about esports nonstop. I actually just started writing for the Esports Observer, so I've been working on a couple of pieces for them. There's some interesting news going on with the Overwatch League that we've been covering, and HGC season just wrapped up last weekend, so all of us that follow the HGC are desperately searching for meaning in our lives for the next couple weeks until the clashes.
And that's like the perfect segue, because one of the main topics that we're going to be talking about this week, thank you, Trent.
Very good at this.
It's like you're professional or something. Is Creators of the Storm. It's a tournament that we're actually putting on at Trolls GG this weekend for creators in the community. We've got a ton of podcasts, writers, websites, casters, all getting together for a fun, lighthearted tournament that's going to take place on the 24th of February, this Saturday at 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about it, introducing the teams, talking a little bit of strategy. That's why I brought in Trent too, because he's a good analyst as well for Heroes of the Storm. So we figured we get some good insights and maybe not give away too many of Mystic's secrets, since Mystic's actually going to be participating in the event. I'm sure he doesn't want to give too many of his strats away. But before we jump into it, we always want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg. Definitely check it out. Bags over at Troll and HGC, because we share our Patreon with TrollsGG, or with Troll and HGC, has put a lot of time into updating it. So we've got new stretch goals, we've got after show games, we've got, ironically enough, if we get to a certain stretch goal, entry-level esports, which Trent hosts, is going to be put into audio version. It's only video version currently. And even if we get to the next stretch goal, we got call-in shows we're going to do as well. And plus, if you donate a certain amount, you'll be credited at the end of our show as a Troll Chieftain. And we've got a Troll Chieftain already, Super Dave. I'll be mentioning you at the end of the show, but thank you again for being our first Troll Chieftain. The Troll of the Week this week is Bahamut. And Bahamut is actually casting Creators of the Storm. He's going to be casting our semifinals and finals. So Bahamut, thanks for agreeing to do that. We're excited to see how you do casting the tournament. Okay, so with that, let's jump into the news.
Someday, this will make a great story.
So we're missing LiQuiuD today, which is great because we've got Trent here who covers esports for a living, so we can actually ask for his insights on Western Clash, which is not this weekend, but next weekend, starting March 2nd to March 4th. So Western Clash is then, we've got Dignitas playing Heroes Hearth, Team 12 playing Method, Tempo Storm playing Zealots, and Fnatic playing Team Freedom. So Trent, what do you think's going to happen here? Is EU just going to sweep the table, or do we have any chances here in NA?
I actually think the last three games have the potential to be competitive for North America, but most likely Dignitas is just going to run away with the entire tournament, and really the only question is, do they drop a game at any point? They did get upset last week by Zealots, which was a massive upset, one of the biggest of the season. But whenever they've been upset, they come back real angry and murder everyone. So I'm expecting them to not play gently with Heroes Hearth.
So is that a good timed loss then, right before the clashes start, to kind of have that bit of a wake-up call? Because I'm sure it's probably fairly frequent. You've got a team that's on top. They feel like they're untouchable. And the last thing you want is to go into a tournament like this feeling untouchable and having that reality check. I'm assuming it's probably better to have that reality check a couple weeks before the big event.
Yeah, basically what happened was they were expecting Zealots to come in with a lot of weird pocket strategies and try to trick them because Dignitas was so much objectively stronger, and Zealots just played straight normal compositions and out-macroed and out-rotated and just won, and Dignitas were not prepared for a team to out-execute them in a straight-up head-to-head match. So that is something that was probably hugely valuable to them as a wake-up call to be like, oh, we actually need to be able to beat people that try to challenge us straight up. And I'm sure they've been working on strategies and viewing those replays over and over again. So they will have cleaned up any of those areas of weakness and come into the Western Clash much stronger than they were a week ago.
So you're expecting Dignitas to walk through the tournament tree here. Who on the other side of it, since it is a single elimination tournament, correct? Who's going to be walking through on the other side?
On the other side, it's going to probably be either Method or Fnatic in the finals against them. But if any team from North America has a shot, I would put most of my faith in Tempo Storm, because they have kind of the perfect mix of playing stuff that's super weird, but understanding how to play it. And it's not just cheese for them. It's stuff that they've practiced and theorized and know how to execute and rotate with. So they have that perfect mix of playing a style that no one else plays, that you can't really prepare for, while also being able to just out-execute opponents.
So we know who you think's going to win. Who are you rooting for? You were rooting for any underdogs here?
Oh, I'm completely biased against Team 12. Team 12 is my favorite team. Roll20 was my favorite team before they left. So I will be unabashedly cheering for Team 12 until they get knocked out, and then I'll cheer for whoever, pick something cool.
How about you, Mystic? Do you have a team you're rooting for here?
Well, like Trent said, I also think that Tempo Storm has the largest chance to win, so go NA, Tempo Storm.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to root for Tempo Storm as well, just because Kala's casting our tournament this weekend, and he's the coach of Tempo Storm, so I feel like I got to back him a little bit for coming and casting our tournament. Okay, so moving along, we've got a couple other pieces of news that dropped today. One notable one, which I'm not sure people are expecting this so soon, is that voice comms are now live in the game. I was expecting this to be maybe even a couple months out still, especially given all of the controversy that surrounded this post BlizzCon, concerning either minority groups or females in particular that felt like they might be ostracized in game, and that would be a disadvantage. So I know Trent has probably got a lot to say about this topic too. But why don't we start with Mystic? What do you think voice comms are good for the game? I mean, it's kind of tough for us, being male and not necessarily being in the minority group that have been voicing their opinion. This might be destructive to the game. But what do you think, Mystic? Is this going to be us having to take a lot of verbal abuse in game now, or do you think it's going to be better for the game than a lot of people think?
I kind of have the two sides here. I think it's good for the game in the sense of competitiveness skill wise, because it allows the game to grow where you can put in verbal communication as a sort of skill, and if you could do that better than everybody, then it will increase the skill threshold of the game where people will play more together instead of just hey, it's Hero League, I'm just gonna do my own thing or whatever, right? And then on the other side, it's the opposite, where it can increase toxicity, and that might create a schism in the community where a lot of people, or some people, might think voice chat is okay, and some people really don't like it, but there's always the flamers around. So
well, I know, Trent, you've probably got a lot to say on this topic. What are your thoughts on voice chat? Do you like the idea that they're adding it in?
I think I wrote an article kind of talking about the whole issue, and folks like Oddish have been really vocal about, the potential issues for women and minorities with voice chat. So I feel like a lot of that has been said to this point. The biggest thing for me now is it exists. I think it's better that it does than it doesn't. There's a lot of opportunity for it to be a really good experience, but Blizzard just has to have a better reporting system. The reporting system in Heroes historically is not good. The automated system they've got for voice chat right now is not going to do it. And verbal abuse should not just result in a silence. It needs to be able to result in a ban. But in an automated system, there's too much potential for that to be misused and for people to be targeted, like we've seen with the regular reporting system when Grubby got banned. So for the biggest thing for me is if there's a better reporting system and Blizzard is willing to put resources into monitoring it, then voice chat is going to probably be a great thing for the community with a few unfortunate problems. If they don't, then probably down the road we're going to have it really end up being a pretty toxic place.
So you cover a lot more esports and have in the past than just Heroes. Like, is there a better reporting system that you think that Heroes should emulate that's been out there historically?
I think the biggest thing for me is feedback on the reporting system, because in Heroes I think the reporting system probably for the most part does a pretty good job, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it does a great job. Like even in Vainglory, when you report someone and they end up getting banned, you get a message in game that says a player you reported was banned. Justice has been done. Which feels
that's gotta feel
great.
Really good. Yeah,
it feels really good, and it feels like your reporting mattered. In League of Legends, we used to have the tribunal system where you could actually go on a website and review cases and read chat logs and vote on whether a player should be punished or not. And when people said that they were punished unfairly, someone from Riot would get on the forums and share their chat logs and show exactly why they were banned to the rest of the community. So you knew that there were people actively monitoring it, and you knew that they were not making mistakes that frequently. And I mean, obviously not being as active in just the general player base as most people are, some of that might exist for Heroes, but the general feeling that I've gotten from most people that I've talked to is that it just doesn't feel like reporting is impactful, and that allows people to do stuff and say, well, I'm not going to get reported. Reporting in Blizzard games does nothing. So people feel like they're not going to be punished, so they feel safer to be awful. And if the reporting system feels more impactful, then it probably deters a lot more bad behavior that doesn't even have to get to the point of reporting.
There's nothing funnier than when someone on Reddit is like, oh, I got banned for this and this reason. Then you see a little blue Blizzard response with the chat logs and be like, oh, yeah, well, this is why. And look at what you said here. And it's just like the public shaming seems to work pretty well whenever someone tries to crawl foul for an improper reason. All right, well, let's not belabor this point too long. Like Trent mentioned before, it's been talked about in depth and exhaustively for the past few months. We also had a patch that dropped today too. So we're going to go over just briefly. It wasn't a huge patch. There was just a few slight nerfs here and there. Notably, one that we mentioned off the top of the show to Maev. So let's start with her. Maev had a 4% health and health regen nerf. Vault of the Wardens is her trait where she jumps. The cooldown is increased from 8 to 9 seconds. Fan of Knives damage was nerfed by 5%. And level 16 Armored Assault was nerfed again. Damage bonus when you have armor was reduced from 25 to 20%. And then finally on level 16, Vengeful Knives got a little bit of a buff. I mean, we've talked about this before. We thought it was a bit of a weak talent to begin with. For every enemy hero hit by Spirit of Vengeance, that's your E, Maev's next Fan of Knives will do 1.2 max health damage, up from 1%. Mystic, do you think this brings Maev into a spot that we can now stop banning her first ban all the time? Because that's getting boring.
Well, they reduced Maev's health back to what it was originally. It's just the only thing that was changed now is they took away the armor. So I think that was pretty good. It makes her more susceptible to just like dying in general. Vault of the Wardens trait cooldown increase. It's pretty good, 1 second. I think it might be needed to increase to 10 seconds, but nine's okay. Fan of Knives damage nerfed by 5%. Okay, that's good. That's good. Armored Assault. This is the big thing that happened here. The 5% decrease was pretty huge for the damage bonus decrease, and then Vengeful Knives. I don't know. I don't think I'd pick it over Armored Assault still, because it still doesn't do that much.
I think I'm going to
in
be
my opinion
bold enough to say this is going to drop her below 50% win rate. Like, this seems to be like, before I think she was hovering around 55, and this is a significant amount of health and damage. Survivability on her trait going up a second can make a difference too. I think this is going to bring her maybe even close to 50%, but more in line with what we want to see. But this doesn't come in time for the Western Clash. So I got a question for you, Trent. What's the word on the street about Maiev? Is she going to be hotly contested come the Western Clash? Is that what you expect?
The thing to remember in esports with heroes like this is that often they are way more powerful in uncoordinated play than they are in coordinated play. We've seen this with heroes like Nova and Zeratul, and just anytime you've got heroes that are really dive focused, really assassin focused, they are more easily countered by a team that can coordinate their stuns, coordinate their cleanses, position properly, expect things, and peel properly. So I don't think she'll be nearly as rampant a problem in the Western class as she is in regular Hero League play or regular unranked draft play or quick match. But we know that there are players like Psalm and like Glaurung who like to kill things and be mobile. And so there's no question that she'll get played, but how much she's a ban priority and how much she gets played just as a normal part of standard compositions, I think remains to be seen once we get to the Clash.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go the other route and say that she was going to be a hotly contested pick in my mind. And again, I'm not a pro player by any stretch of the imagination. And maybe this is just, showing that she has a lot of power, say, in the pub leagues that we play in, as opposed to the esports pro scene. But I expected her to be kind of eventually, after she gets nerfed, a Medivh type hero, in that we have a low win rate in Hero League and quick match, but in competitive that she'd actually be still picked quite often, again similar to Genji style hero as well, because of the mobility that she can kind of bring to the game and that playmaking ability. But one thing I guess I didn't really consider too much is that the pros can play around that, and it's not as much playmaking as being able to figure out how to deal with her. And if the pros can figure her out, then it takes away a lot of her power. What do you think, Mystic? What kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Go ahead, Trent.
Oh, go ahead, Mystic.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think Trent is right in that, like, my initial thoughts on this hero were that she wasn't going to be that strong just because of her kit. And when she got released, she was really strong because of her numbers, right? And so when pros pick up a hero, it's generally like, hey, I pick up this hero, I played it in competitive because it's really strong, it's really hard to deal with, or if it fills a very specific niche that I need on my team at the moment. And now, since like the biggest factor about her has been nerfed, which was her numbers, it's gonna bring her back down to like normal hero levels. So
I still...
Yeah, I think one thing to remember, like one of the reasons that I harp so much on Johanna not being as good as people think she is because similar, where it's a short cooldown that protects you. But in the pro scene, if you watch games a lot, a Johanna played by a team that's not as experienced will wade in, get burst, use their D to get out, and then come back in, and that's when all of the crowd control gets put on them. And that's what's going to happen to Maiev a lot of the time, is she's going to vault something. They're going to force her to vault by using a lower cooldown bit of crowd control, and then as soon as she comes back down, pile on burst damage, have a Li Ming combo sitting there waiting for her. I just don't think that her kit is going to be as oppressive and as powerful in coordinated play.
Well, I hope you guys definitely prove me wrong, and I'm sure the pro team probably will. That's why, you know, Trent, you get paid the big bucks to do what you do, right?
Medium-sized bucks.
Sure. Well, I meant more like novelty-sized checks, right?
Yes.
Wherever I go to work, I always make sure they pay me with novelty-sized checks. Makes me feel more important. So Malthael also got a bit of a change to Soul Rip. The mana was increased from 20 to 25, and the healing was reduced by 30% per target. However, heroic target healing has been increased from 3 to 4% of the max health of the hero. Tormented Souls, his ultimate, the cooldown has been reduced from 100 to 80 seconds. Level 4 Die Alone. This is where if you soul rep one hero, you get bonus damage. It's been gone down from 75 to 50. And then Soul Collector at level 16, bonus range of soul rep has been reduced from 50 to 25%. The devs say that the reason for all these changes is they want to make sure that he's not as oppressive in the solo lane, but still has that kind of team fighting potential. So they're taking the power out of his laning and putting it a little bit into his team fight, with the healing and then the survivability being more focused towards team fighting. And also this puts a little pressure on your mana, since if you're spamming Q, that extra 5 mana per Q can actually get to the point where you gotta be a bit more careful with it. What do you think of Malthael, Mystic? Has he been as oppressive in the solo lane as people say he's been?
Yeah, he's pretty oppressive in the solo lane just because of the main talent of Die Alone. I think that's it. Everything else is it's just mainly that. Plus the fact that they changed it so they can, he can heal off of the minions while, doing the Die Alone damage. So that's the big thing. In my opinion, I don't think they needed to reduce healing off of minions and increasing the mana cost. I feel like that's a bit much, even for a hero as strong as Malthael is. I think that they just needed to reduce the damage from Die Alone, and then that would have made him more balanced.
Moving along to Thrall, I'm just going to kind of go through the rest of the heroes quickly here because we want to move on to the preview portion of the show. Thrall had his Chain Lightning bounce range increased by 20%. Do you guys have any insight on why you think they'd increased Thrall's bounce range? Is this a problem before?
It's absurdly short.
I guess so. This will make, I guess, getting some of his questing talents a little bit easier, notably the one where, bouncing to other heroes at level 1 to get that completed. Zeratul had some damage increases to Cleave and Singularity Spike, 6% and 5% respectively. Void Prison's mana cost has gone down from 100 to 80, and Might of the Nerazim's basic attack damage bonus has been reduced from 40 to 30%. The devs say, okay, we're going to shift some of Zeratul's power to the earlier game, so you get a pre-ultimate by giving him more damage there, and this kind of balances out if you still take Might of the Nerazim, because you get that damage back later, but just not as strongly. So Zeratul, it's funny, he used to be the only stealthy that you'd ever take in competitive. Now he's one of the weaker stealthies. Trent, what's the state of stealth heroes in esports these days? Is Zeratul just off the radar, or are we still seeing him at all?
Zeratul actually gets a decent amount of play, especially on teams like Tempo Storm that like to go in and have players like Laurung that just love playing Zeratul. He's definitely a niche pick. The changes that were made make him interesting because now Void Prison isn't the go-to heroic, and that used to be a lot of why you picked Zeratul. Now he's much more of a duelist and a solo laner, and right now there's just a lot of heroes that do his job better. Outside of him, we don't see any stealth heroes in pro play.
Yeah. So moving along, we got Zool, had health and health regen increased by about 5%, basic attack damage increased by 6%. Skeletal Warriors' health got reduced by 6%, and the damage was reduced by almost 9% for them. Bone Prison's cooldown was reduced from 12 to 10 seconds, a pretty big change actually, and the mana cost is also reduced from 80 to 70. Level 7 Tragool's Essence, the mana restored per Skeleton Warrior attack, has been reduced from 0.5 to 0.2 of Zool's maximum mana. The idea here is they don't want to be as heavy into the push and shift some more of his power to team fights. That seems like a pretty big nerf to Tragool's Essence there. That's almost, that's more than half of the mana return there. And those Skeleton Warriors, 9% damage reduction and all this health reduction too. That seems to be a pretty big deal to me. What do you think, Mystic?
Yeah, they're really heavily nerfing kind of lane sustain and the mana here. But the big thing, they increased his health and health regen by quite a bit, as well as his basic attack damage. So that's a huge plus. The other huge plus here is that the Bone Prison was reduced from 12 to 10, which does make him a lot better in team fights. So he can just put it out constantly, and then if he goes the Scythe build, I think he's actually pretty good in team fights.
I mean, that's always been the downside of Zool. Is he doesn't, outside of his ultimate, doesn't necessarily bring much to the table in a team fight. Maybe things are turning around here? Maybe? What do you think, Trent? Do you think we're going to see any Zool these days in professional play?
Zool actually does get a little bit of play here and there. There's some niche areas because of his strong wave clear, his ability to mess with healing. Both of his ults are very, very good in specific situations. Nova has completely turned fights around on a couple of occasions. Bone Prison is a really good ability because you know when the stun is going to happen, so you can plan your combos around it really well. I've seen some theory talk going around among analysts that Blizzard is starting to realize that Specialist is a very stupid category that doesn't help or is useful in any way. And so many people are just confused and think that all these heroes do is split push. So a lot of these changes to me speak to them starting to move Specialists more into a more reasonable, more specific role. Having more health, having more basic attack damage allows them to trade better in lane, to be more of an off-laner bruiser style hero rather than just being a split pusher. So I think it'll be interesting to see if more of those changes start to happen to Specialist heroes to make them more focused on roles that make sense in a competitive composition, to eventually get rid of the Specialist tag as a whole and come up with a better role system.
You think Azmodan's next? He's notorious for split pushing, or maybe Zagara. I mean, I remember the days when it was always Maw all the time for Zagara, right? And that was a huge moment that you'd always get in esports. It's oh, it's a 5-man Maw or whatever, right? But you rarely get to see the Specialist play in esports. I mean, at least that's the impression I get. Trent, am I totally off base here?
I mean, we just don't consider him Specialists. Medivh is a support, Zagara is an off-laner, but right now she doesn't get played because the off-laners just beat her up in lane. She's really more of a mage, especially Nidus is not really used for its global split pushing power, but more for its vision and for the movement and attack speed that it gives to Zagara. So she really just doesn't have a spot right now. Hammer has been used. Hammer's an assassin. She's not a Specialist. If you watch pro Hammer play, you're not sieged up that frequently, especially in team fights, because it doesn't actually give you more team fight presence. So a lot of the Specialists, we just don't really consider them Specialists. We consider them, whatever role we care about for the pro scene. And some Specialists fit for that, and a lot of them named Gazlo don't. But that's just the way that we look at it, and I think Blizzard is starting to realize that all they did with the Specialist role is confuse people and make a couple of trolley heroes, and trolley heroes are cute, but when people want to actually play the game at a proficient level, you got to give them a little bit more than that.
I feel like you're borrowing LiQuid's tinfoil hat here. I mean, I really hope they do reclassify. I think it's long overdue. People have been talking about it forever. Not only the fact just maybe reclassifying Specialists, but the fact that some warrior, you can have offlaners, jungle. There's all sorts of tags you can put on heroes. They don't necessarily fit into one specific category. They're not necessarily a warrior. They might have multiple roles they can fill. So it'll be interesting to see if Blizzard actually finally, starts to take that advice and start to move in that direction where they don't try and slot them into those pigeonholed roles, at least in the UI.
Yeah, the fact that Diva's icon is a shield is a disservice to every player that plays the video game.
Yeah, and I mean with the crazy heroes and kits that we're getting, that we've had since alpha that have been released, right? I mean, there's so many heroes that just don't slot anywhere really, and it's kind of difficult to even figure out where to put them. Like especially like Medivh too, like specialists, like you kind of wonder about that. They've put him there because they didn't know where else to put him. It's not necessarily because he is a specialist. He's more of a supporting role, but still, that's just case in fact that you have these hard to define roles that you've got all these heroes in. So Tyrande got a buff to Light of a Loon, or Q. Her cooldown was reduced from 12 to 11 seconds, getting her heal up a little bit more frequently there. And Sonya, apparently, on the January 24th patch, some of the stuff didn't get pushed to her properly, so they're reapplying these nerfs. Basic attack damage reduced by 4.5%. Poison Spear and Nervous of Steel getting nerfs as well. So that's the patch, which brings us into the Creators of the Storm preview. So, for those of you that don't know, on February 24th, we're hosting a tournament that's going to be all sorts of podcasters, writers, casters, content creators throughout the community. And we're putting all those shows and writers into 4 separate teams, mashup teams, and they're going to play each other in a round-robin style tournament, followed by a single elimination best-of-3 tournament with crazy rule sets. It's going to be cast by Cavalier Guest for the round-robin portion. Kala and Bahamut are going to be casting the semifinals and the finals. It's going to be a great event. You can catch it over twitch.tv/TrollsGG. So I've got a couple of videos that I'm going to show you. We're going to introduce all the different teams, talk about the teams a bit, and then we're going to get into the specific game modes and try and break them down and analyze them, because I know that most of the competitors have no idea even where to start. So it'll be interesting to get Mystic and Trent's analysis and what they think is going to be strong in all these different game modes. So I'm just going to start by showing the introductory video for Creators of the Storm, and we'll move on from there. Enjoy.
Stimmed Bloodlust Archon is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Welcome to Creators of the Storm, a Heroes of the Storm tournament like no other. In this tournament, you'll see your favorite podcasters, writers, and content creators for Heroes of the Storm duke it out in a lighthearted tournament. We've got some great casters hosting the event. Coach of Gale Force Esports, Cavalier Guest, Coach of Tempo Storm, Kala, and Heroes Hype caster, Bahamut. And in this tournament, nothing is out of bounds. Each game will have a special rule set. Horde vs. the Alliance, all supports, Diablo vs. StarCraft, and even the popular reverse draft, just to name a few. And if that's not enough, we'll have tons of giveaways for those who join us live on stream. Join us at twitch.tv/TrollsGG on February 24th between 1 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or visit our website trolls.gg/COTS to find out more. Okay, so let's go over the teams, because I think this is pretty interesting. We've got a lot of great creators in the community coming together, starting with our first team, Lords of the Hype Forge. A lot of people are, like, I've talked to a lot of the captains, Mystic, including your captain Bags. A lot of people are thinking that these guys are maybe even the favorites to win. TBK Zord is their captain from Lords of the Storm. He was actually on the winning team last year. He's bringing along 2 of his Zord Lords as well, Multi-Zord and Gizmo Zord as well from Lords of the Storm. They're going to be joined by 2 newbies to the tournament, Jeff from Heroes Forge and Goki from Heroes Hype. Mystic, are you worried about these guys? I mean, the 3 Zords, I hear they're all around like platinum, diamondish level, 3 guys that probably play a lot together. Are these the Titans to take down?
Here's my esports answer. I think they're looking very strong, and they're very tough contenders, but we're going to try our best to take them out.
Okay. You've had the media training already. Well, why don't we see what TBK Zord has to say in his intro video about the team?
Hey, I'm TBK Zord from Lords of the Storm, and I am the team captain of Lords of the Hype Forge, the best name. So on my team with me, I have Multizord and Gizmozord, who also host Lords of the Storm with me. And then I have Jeff from one of my favorite podcasts, Heroes Forge, and then Goki, who is one of the Heroes Hype streamers. I really like Creators of the Storm because the Heroes community is really tight-knit, and a lot of the content creation part of the community is really tight-knit too. Everyone, in my experience, has been extremely supportive and just helpful to each other. And so this is just one of those fun events where a bunch of us can get together and we can just have some fun, put on a really great show, and just kind of show that awesome connectedness of the Heroes community. So I have extreme confidence in all members of my team. They are absolutely amazing players. At least I hope they will be amazing players. We did pretty good last year, so I'm not too worried. Not too worried. I might eat my words, probably, maybe. Zexrus? Oh, I mean, I heard some mumblings that he was angry about something, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of all the winning we did over their team last year. I'm a huge fan of Sexy Picard because it's just so random. Like, you can just completely get screwed over just from a team comp perspective, or you can just randomly get your best character ever, and that ticks everyone off right from the beginning of the game, which is absolutely hilarious. And it's just, I love being just thrown into that, and it's just like, okay, you don't play Lily very often. Go do your thing. Okay, I'll go on an adventure, I guess. I'm TBK Zord, and I am a creator of the storm.
Okay, and the Titans are going to be trying to be taken down by the self-cast villain, Zexrus, and his team, Nexus Realm Power Heroes. Zexrus very willingly jumped into the villain role. I'm not sure if I should be worried about that or not, or but I mean, it's exciting to have someone who likes to cast themselves as that. He's been flaming a lot on Twitter and trash talking quite a bit. I'm sure as a child he probably watched WWF or WWE, I guess as it's now known, because he's been talking a lot of smack. So we got on Zexrus's team, obviously Zexrus, P-Flame G, and DJ Tyrant from Nexus Commentaries. All of them were on the Heroes Power Hour 2, which just stopped production a couple weeks ago. Ro from Realm Maintenance, and Solid Jake from Town Hall Heroes. So let's see what Zexrus has to say about it.
Hi, I'm Zexrus from Nexus Commentaries. I am the captain of the Nexus Realm Power Heroes, and I'm excited to be here. P-Flame G is a co-commentator here on Nexus Commentaries. We got DJ Tyrant, Mr. Stay Tight himself, also a part of Nexus Commentaries. We also have Ro from Realm Maintenance, and our lock to win this tournament, Solid Jake from Town Hall Heroes. We've got a tournament winner in Ro from last year, and we've got Solid Jake. We can't possibly lose this tournament. I like Creators of the Storm because it was a great opportunity to mingle with the other content creators of the Nexus. We forged several friendships out of this, most notably Bacon. Poor guy's going to get bodied again this year from the Gankbush squad. Like, he's a cool guy. We like him. Most notably, it's going to be the All Warriors against TBK Zord's team, just because that's what we lost to last year, and I'm hungry. I'm desiring revenge on that. This big boy's making a comeback, complete with B steps. Got to commit. You got to commit to those B steps. If you're not B stepping at low health, then you're not really committed to the cause. The team we're most concerned about are either Geeks of Gank or Lords of the Hype Forge, because last year the team TBK was on, who is on Lord of the Hype Forge, they won the tournament last year, and we can't allow that. It's a smorgasbord of Zords. It's really cool that Kyle is casting this, and the big, beautiful, bearded man, Bahamut. I've casted him with a bunch. He's a great guy. He's gonna be absolutely perfect for this tournament. TVK Zord, I'm coming for you. I'm gonna avenge that loss from last year. Hey, I'm Zextrus, and I'm a creator of the Storm.
And next up, we've got Geeks of Gank. They're a team that's headed by Bacon, who Zex was talking a little bit about in his video there, from Gankbush Squad, along with Scott and Fringe, also from Gankbush Squad. A lot of people were talking about Gankbush Squad and how they, quote-unquote, upgraded because now they're bringing along Scott, who didn't actually play in last year's tournament. And one of the big concerns is that Bacon and Scott are both masters, with Bacon actually having been a GM for a significant portion of the last couple of seasons. They're going to be pairing up with Tarly and Sleepy Gary from Geeks of Azeroth as well, Mystic. If I was a team that was going to be worried, I think I'd be worried about the Bacon-Scott combo. Do you think Fringe is going to drag him down far enough that you don't have to worry about the top two?
No, I don't think so. I think Geeks of Gank are actually like a really good team potential-wise. I think the only thing holding them back like last time was just a few cooperation issues. But if they get past that, I think they're a really good team, and they might give the previous champions a run for their money.
Well, let's see what Bacon has to say about it, shall we?
Hi, I'm Bacon from Gankbush Squad, and I'm the captain of Geeks of Gank. So I'm Bacon from Gankbush Squad, and on my team, I have Scott and Fringe Average from the Gankbush Squad, and then the other two that make up the squad are Sleepy Gary and Tarly from the Geeks of Azeroth. The Geeks of Azeroth guys and I have been practicing a little bit, but the biggest thing is we're preparing drafts, and we have a couple of surprises for everybody. What I like about Creators of the Storm is that it gives all the creators a chance to come together and have this tournament, and even better for me to stomp on everyone. So a lot of people are worried that Scott and I, being the only masters in the tournament, are also on the same team. And to that, I'll say yes, but this game is so much more about the teamwork and drafting and coordination within the game. I'd be surprised if it has a huge effect on the outcome of the game. So it's all about, playing together as a team. So whoever does that better, I think, has the edge. The biggest sleeper are Mystic and Rosai from the Trolls GG crew. In terms of the X Factor and Dark Horses, that's who I'm afraid of the most. The two game modes that interest me the most are the Peekaboo, which is we turn off the Fog of War so everyone can see everyone. That would be interesting in terms of map rotations and play that comes into it. The other one is Hypercarry. And Hypercarry is draft where you only get one assassin as defined by Blizzard. So I want to see if double support comes out, or double tank, or triple tank, like what'll happen with that, or maybe a split push comp. It'll be fun to see what people come up with. Zextrus has been talking a lot of trash on Twitter lately, so I'd like to beat him down, and then so I can talk my own trash on Twitter. That'll be fun. I'm always worried Fringe is going to drag me down. I'm Bacon, and I'm a creator of the Storm.
I like how Zexer seems to have found his way into every single video we've done. But I mean, Mystic, hey, that's a pretty big compliment. Bacon says that you and Roz are two to worry about, Roz being one of the writers for Trolls GG. Are you going to do the network proud and try and take home the victory over those guys?
I will try my best.
And that's the final team is Troll and Blizz, which Mystic's a part of. Bags from Troll and HEC and the Weekly Blizz is our captain. Guaz from the Weekly Blizz is joining us, as well as Mystic from the Nexus Trolls, obviously, and Rosai from Trolls GG, a writer here, and Alebeard is a writer for BlizzPro.com. So let's see what Bags has to say about his team.
Hey, I'm Bags. I'm from the Weekly Blizz and Trolling HEC podcast, and I'm also the team captain of the Trolling Blizz team. So on the Trolling Blizz team, we've got myself, obviously, but as well, we've got my co-host from the Weekly Blizz, Guaz, who I've known for quite a while. We went to high school together and we're good buddies. As well, we've got Mystic from the Nexus Trolls, who will probably be our star player. As well, we've got Rosai from the Trolls.gg website. He's a writer for Trolls.gg. And filling out the roster, we also are bringing on Elbeard, another writer, but from the BlizzPro.com website. What I love about Creators of the Storm is it takes all these personalities from all these different content creators from the Heroes community and brings them together. And as a consumer, it's something I always wanted and wanted to see and was very interested in. I wanted to see how these personalities kind of clashed and bounced off each other and just what happened when you brought them all together in the same space. The teams I'm looking forward to the most to playing is we beat on the Geeks of Gank last time around, even though probably on paper their team was probably a little more stacked than ours. We whooped up on them, and I'm looking forward to returning the favor again this coming Creators of the Storm. If there's one game mode that I'm really excited to play again, and it was a lot of fun because it was kind of just like a big, I don't know, the whole time you're just laughing because it was a little ridiculous, was the ludicrous speed. We won last time around during that matchup, and I don't know what about it that made us successful, but when Race Car Dahaka turns into like Fast and the Furious on North Dahaka, right? Like you are just like, when you finish that quest, you're just absolutely, you're all over the place. You don't need to, like, globals become less important, I guess, but still, it was a lot of fun. Bags, and I'm a creator of the Storm.
Okay, so those are the teams. So now the next segment of our preview show, we're going to start talking about strategy, because we've got a lot of game modes that turn the game on its head and make you have to rethink it. We came across this last time around, and we're definitely going to come across this time because we've got some new game modes as well as some oldies. So we're going to start with one that both myself and Mystic played in, Ludicrous Speed, and that game's going to be played on Volskaya. So this, just so everyone knows, Ludicrous Speed is played in sandbox mode on the fastest setting. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what speed it is. I think it's 1.5 speed, might be 2 times speed. And we have a standard mid-band draft for this. So last time, Mystic, we ended up on top. What do you think made that happen? Was it the draft? Because we had some pretty good heroes, I think, for this mode. What kind of heroes do you think are going to be prioritized here? What do you think worked from last time?
I mean, I think the Genji worked from last time. Yeah, Genji was just like super fast, and because the game set, it's set to really fast, it means his mobility abilities come up much quicker, and it's like much harder to catch him, it seems like. So if you go in, you just like get out and then have them chase you around for a little bit, then your abilities are back up again. You could just dash across the screen once again. I think he's a really strong pick along with Zeratul, because he kind of does the same thing except even faster. You can like go in, get out, and do like half of somebody's health without them even blinking. And with this mode, it's going to be even faster than that.
One thing the other team struggled with, and it was the Gangbush squad, was having Uther as a healer, because everyone's moving around so much, it's hard to hit those healing skill shots. On the converse side, I feel like strong heroes in this map would be those that have skill shots that are hard to dodge if you don't have the like really quick reaction time, because you need even quicker reaction time. Like Li Ming or Chromie, you can really spam those catch heroes off guard, and it's like you're just constantly throwing out. So those are the heroes that I expect to do really well. Your Li Mings, your Chromies, especially from far away where it's like hard to catch them even too, because they seem to be moving so much faster. Trent, what do you think is going to be things that people should be looking out for in the ludicrous speed on Volskaya?
It being on Volskaya is really interesting to me, because I assume this means that the conveyor belts are going 90 miles an hour.
I didn't even think about that.
Boy, howdy, is that going to be a mess. So I would expect to, if I were to, as I always do, take things very, very seriously and analyze as if we're trying to win for pride and honor and glory and country, I would want to prioritize lane dominance and wave clear so that I am stupidly far ahead before the first objective even comes up, because I don't want to mess with those conveyor belts at any point, and I never want the game to come down to needing to take the capture point at bottom, because that thing is just going to be a nightmare. Either that, or you pick Gazlo and you plan all your entire strategy around fighting it for the bottom objective, and you never lose it because your turrets are going around so fast that they're always hitting someone.
Yeah, I mean, even just simple game mechanics like hitting skill shots or stutter stepping becomes a lot more difficult. Like that rhythm that you get used to, say, like if you play like an auto attack assassin, you gotta readjust your timings and everything just to get it to work out. I feel like stutter stepping was extraordinarily difficult in this game mode, and like I said, I think hitting skill shots is really gonna make or break it here. So what heroes would you want to take here, Trent? Do you have any heroes you'd like to take as a pocket pick, or you think it should be banned out early on?
I think healers that are easy to play are going to be a huge priority. Things like Lucio, Malfurion are going to be really powerful. Rhaegar is probably going to be a monster. So I would want to prioritize a really good healer. And like you say, probably go for some high mobility assassins, get some Zeratul, get some Genjis in there, and just get on the back line. Maybe even take some heroes that are weak because they have to walk at people. And because now you have less time to react and hit them with skill shots, you can maybe wade in there with an Arthas or a Ragnaros and deal some problematic damage.
Arthas will actually learn to run in this game mode. Yeah, I mean,
About time.
When I played as Rhaegar, I didn't even think about going Ancestral. It was just Bloodlust, because I knew that the timing Ancestral would be that much more difficult, because, you know, your reaction time, you've got that a smaller window to be able to think about it. I mean, the Ancestral goes off faster, but there's just more stuff happening. It makes it more difficult, whereas Bloodlust felt like we got so much value out of it too, because, you know, everyone just moves even faster, makes it even that much more chaotic for the other team. And I think that's one of the reasons that we ended up doing well. Okay, next game mode, or next game is going to be no supports on Towers of Doom. Now, we had an all supports game last time around, but we didn't have a no supports game. I feel like this is just quick match mode. So no Medivh allowed either, and it's a standard mid-ban draft since we've got a diverse amount of heroes we can pick for this. So looking at this, I kind of broke it down to two different schools of thought here, because you don't have a support and you're actually crafting a team. You're not just throwing together a team like you are in QM that you can't really control very easily. I thought that you could either go the one route where you pick a lot of self-sustaining or off-support heroes, like a Zarya or a Tyrael, or heroes that can kind of heal themselves up, even like a Gul'dan or a Murden, something along those lines. But then on the other side of it, I was thinking, well, you don't have any support, so maybe the hard dive comp, just to like blow them up really fast and take that, you know, numbers advantage into the fight, might be a better way of going about it. What do you think, Trent, would be the route you'd go, or would you go completely different route for strategizing for this map?
I think you're 100% right. Tyrael needs to be first pick, first ban, because his shields are just real good and come up quickly. Zarya is good, but her shields aren't as reliable for protecting your team, and she really needs to, you know, use her shields to rank up her damage, so I don't think she's going to be as powerful. For me, I would 100% build a poke comp, because the weakest thing in heroes, because healing is so strong, poke compositions don't work like they do in League of Legends. But this is the one game mode where you're going to be able to run a true League of Legends style poke comp, and anyone who knows how to run a comp like that, no one that's a Heroes player is going to have any sort of answer to it, and you're going to run through this game mode for free.
Interesting insight. I know, Mystic, you play some League of Legends too. You've been known to dabble there. Do you agree with Trent here that poke comp's the way to go?
Yeah, I think poke comp is very strong. Because if you know, like Trent said, how to like poke, then disengage, and you don't actually ever have to fight them unless it's like on an objective or something like that, right? Then you can just poke them out, and then they have to tap or back off, and then you just poke them out again, and then, you know, you just take the objective for free after that.
What do you think, like, because now you don't have that support player, what do you fill that fifth slot with in this case here? Do you go 3 frontline, 2 backline, 2 frontline, 3 backline? What are you thinking?
I think that's dependent on the composition that you have, because you can totally just go four front line, one back line if you want. I mean, I think it depends on what kind of composition you want. If you want them like a run them over comp, then you could go 3 front line, 2 back line. Or if you want a more of a, hey, I have 2 tanks that are defending my back line, and then just like have the back line just unleash all their spells or what have you on the enemy team.
And one idea I had here, I hope I'm not ruining anyone's strats. Maybe it's a horrible idea, who knows? But I was thinking, who could potentially fill a bit of a support role here would be an Abathur. And it's Towers of Doom, so it's not a pick that's out of the question for the map too. Is Abathur maybe some way you could sneak in a support-esque hero with his healing build?
I think, that is a pretty good strategy. I kind of wish they would remove that talent at level 1 where, he just heals people. I think that's absolutely dumb because it actually heals for quite a bit on a low cooldown too. So, it's pretty strong.
So what heroes do you think we should be looking at here as stronger than the rest, first pick, first ban, or maybe sneaky picks?
I think heroes that do like a high amount of damage or have the sustain or both are really good, because Thrall I think is really good because he has like the initial sustain. He can poke with his chain lightning, and he's an all-around pretty good hero. And then Kael'thas, he does a lot of poke damage, if you stand in his flame strike. Plus he has talents that can actually have him heal himself, and he does very high amounts of damage. So if you don't have a healer to like help you out with that, then your team's kind of toast.
I can't wait to see how people work that game in. So next on the docket is All Warriors on Infernal Shrines. This is the notorious Zexrus versus TBK matchup. So expect Chen involvement here, not because he's good, just because Zexrus likes him and TBK probably doesn't want him playing Chen. So for this game, only warriors are allowed. Obviously, it's standard mid-ban format, and Varian is allowed. There's no restriction on his ultimate, too. So when you've got tanky heroes, focus, I think, is going to be the number one portion of this, the key to victory here. If you can't focus your damage, if your team's not coordinated enough, I think you're going to be in quite a bit of trouble. I also think that bruisers are going to be very high priority here because you need a source of damage. You can't just have Marshmallow hitting Joanna, being your damage. You need to have some sort of source of damage here. It's going to be a lot of clumped up melee too, so it'll be interesting to see how everyone goes with that. Trent, what do you think? All warriors on Infernal Shrines. If you had to pick 5 warriors, is there any sort of advice you'd have? Any heroes that you'd want to prioritize over others in this case?
This is a fascinating compositional like drafting challenge, because I think there's a lot of percent health based talents in the game that often go overlooked that suddenly become crazy powerful. You could potentially run like a Nubarak with Locust Swarm because you can guarantee that people are going to be in your face. Knowing which bruisers to take, Artanis can probably get a lot of value because he's always going to have somebody to hit. Obviously, Leoric, like if any team lets Leoric through, they deserve to lose. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff that can happen here. But boy, are team fights just going to end up being nonsense.
So do you think it's a matter of, because like if you've got even just 5 bruisers, say, that's probably enough of a health pool, and you'd assume between the 5 you've got enough peel, if that's even the right word for what you might need as it from like their kind of role here. Like, do you just go damage as much as damage as you can, percent based damage, I guess preferably, but do you think that's the kind of route you have to take almost in this situation, or do you want like a tanky tank that has that CC? Because I feel like with 5 tanks or 5 warriors, you're gonna have a lot of CC because naturally warriors tend to have a lot of CC in their kit.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to burst anybody down even if you've got like a full like Sonya, Leoric, Artanis thing happening, because every decent warrior has some sort of mobility or self-healing or, damage reduction ability. And like you say, there's going to be crowd control all over the place. So you really just kind of have to, again, it's a situation where you don't have a healer, so whichever team is able to stick more damage on the opponent before the fight actually starts is going to win the fight every time. So you've really got to play careful and play smart and not get caught by things that you're not going to then be able to heal back up around an objective. So getting to the objective first and setting up is going to be really important. Having someone on your team that can handle mercenaries so that you've got really good pressure in lanes if you're going to be, you know, poking around and playing for the shrine. Having those mercenaries going in and off lane is going to be really useful so that you can force a mismatch on your opponents.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested to see what talent choices people are going to take, because like you're saying before with the new Brax Locust Storm, like people might pick lesser pick talents because just you've got a unique situation that you don't come across in your regular games. And I think you bring up a really great point too with mercenary and lane pressure. A lot of warriors don't have the greatest lane clear, so maybe those that do, like your Sonias or your Dahakas, might be, you know, prioritized a little bit more over your other heroes as well. The two that I kind of earmarked too, and again, I think percentage-based healing and damage is kind of going to be a theme here, but Diablo's got a couple there with a Life Leech at level 1 talent where he does hero-based damage plus gets healing back off of it based on their max HP, and Devastating Charge at level 13 gets chunks 5% of a hero's health plus does bonus damage too, depending on your questing there, as well as Artanis has got some Titan Killer, I believe is the talent there too. Mystic, are there any heroes that you think that might be hotly contested? I mean, Trent kind of, I think, stole one of yours by saying Leoric, you deserve to lose if you don't ban or take Leoric first.
I think Sonya it could actually be quite strong here because, while everybody does have a lot of CC, she doesn't have a resource, like a limited resource, I'd like to say. Like, it's kind of limited in where you have like only a certain amount of it at a time, but if you can get those fights going long enough, which they probably will be because, you know, everybody's a warrior and it might be a noodle fight, but she can heal up really, really well with like Life Funnel, and just even without Life Funnel, just Whirlwind, and she's going to deal a lot of damage over like the long period of time.
So Zexorus, because I know you're listening here, what I want to see is the washing machine Sonya Crater with the Chen barrel catching 5 heroes ripping around in the circle there. That's what I want a clip of that for the tournament, because that one will be one that'll go down in glory and go down for the ages, I think. Okay, next on the docket is Sexy Picards and Lost Cavern. Very appropriate because that's this week's brawl as well. So this is just Sexy Picards is ARAM on Lost Cavern. For those of you who don't know, you have to pick from 3 randomly selected heroes. This one I think is one of the bigger coin toss games because it really depends on what your choices are. Like, you don't even know if your team's going to have an option of a healer. I feel like any heroes that don't have mana or have health regen, like a Gul'dan, say, or someone who can replenish their health is very powerful as well, or doesn't have those mana issues, because it's pretty much one long drawn out team fight you can't hearth back. So Trent, what do you think about ARAM? Like, where should teams be focusing when they've got those 3 heroes to choose from? What should they be looking for?
I think you make a really good point about resource management, and anything that forces your opponent to use their resources because they can't ever leave is going to be really strong. You want to play slow and you want to exhaust your opponent of their resources. So you want to take stuff like Lunara that can safely whittle away resources from the other team while not using a lot of your own resources, and then eventually look for an opportunity to go in. Long-range crowd control is really powerful because you can't just keep healing up from a Stitch's Hook burst. If you exhaust all of the healer's mana and then you land a Stitch's Hook, they die. So I think stuff like that, where you can just play the long, slow resource war, is kind of the way that I would want to play it.
It really does feel like a war of attrition whenever you play ARAM. I feel like it'll either be a stomp on one side or a kind of like this long, drawn-out stalemate, depending on how the heroes shake down. But Mystic, what are your thoughts here? Who are you looking to see as highly prioritized selections? I mean, in the limited selections that you can take.
I'm kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum here because, like, even when you have like or short of Morales, right, who has like infinite resource, or like the Bright Wings, right? If you can actually take heroes that make very valuable trades, then you can come up off of that. Like Chromie, where everybody's like kind of clustered in one lane, she'll have a really easy time landing her Qs and then getting her stacks that way. Stukov, who, you know, like I said about Chromie, in a very small lane, his arm can get a lot of value there just by silencing a lot of people. So I would pick heroes like those two, where you can get a lot of value over, you know, just the short, like the battlefield, how it's really small.
So I got a little question for you, strategy-wise, too. Let's say you're pretty early game where the deaths don't matter as much and you find yourself out of resources. Is suiciding a valid strategy to come back? Like, instead of just standing there for, you know, 15, 20, 30 seconds, minutes even, trying to, like, wait for those globes, wait for your tap, maybe just dying and coming back on the short health timers makes more sense to get those resources back at the cost of experience for the other team. Is this something that's a valid strategy, or am I crazy here?
I think it is a valid strategy, as long as like there's certain conditions where, one, if you want to stagger like a little bit of death here and there, because, you know, you don't want everybody to just all die and, like, you know, the enemy team has no opposition to, like, you know, for just taking everything that you have. So you may want to like keep 4 people there, have 1 person die, and then them come back with like full resources. So that's something. Another thing is, as long as, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff that exists there to play around with. But yeah, I think dying strategically is a valid strategy that you can implement.
And a couple of heroes that I earmarked here, I feel like Ragnaros is extraordinarily powerful in this map. Taking Lava Wave, being able to, like, I was playing on the Brawl recently, the other team had Ragnaros, and we were constantly pressuring their lane. But the problem is they keep just, Ragnaros would wipe the lane clear every, you know, minute or whatever is the cooldown is on his Lava Wave there, and made it very difficult to progress with a minion wave up to the core to finish the game. Not to mention he can do a lot of poke damage even with his mirror build, or a lot of defensive damage when he D's up, because everyone's in that lane, they've got nowhere to go except for to retreat, right? So Ragnaros seemed like a very strong pick to me, and actually Bacon, I think, took him when we played in this mode last Creators of the Storm, and that kind of ended up being our ultimate demise. So the next game mode is an interesting one, and I think there's a lot of strategy that's going to evolve here, and it's Peekaboo on Cursed Hollow. This is Fog of War off. So no matter where you are, you're going to be able to be seen by the other team. The mini-map is going to be a fountain of knowledge. No one can hide anymore. So this changes the game completely. Like, how do you respond? You can't sneak anything because there's, like, almost by definition no sneaking allowed. The only things that wouldn't show up on the minimap are stealth heroes, so I'm assuming stealth would be strong, I guess. And what I probably try and do if I was drafting here is try and make the other team respond to you, like get them to follow you around the map, as opposed to the other way around. And if you can have that map control on Cursed Hollow, then I feel like you're making those smart decisions, even though the other team knows exactly what you're doing. That's probably the key to success. But I don't know, like, this is something that we've never had to deal with before. Trent, what do you think you should be doing here when you can see everything on the map? I mean, this is how I used to cheat in Warcraft 2. I used to turn Fog of War off, but this isn't really cheating now, because, you know, it's just as much of an advantage for the other team.
Honestly, on this one, I would just tell teams to not get overly cute with it. You're not playing against HGC level players who are constantly flickering their eyes to the minimap. You're still going to be able to gank people and catch somebody off guard periodically. In lane, somebody's still going to overstep and forget that they're playing with Fog of War off. You won't be able to, like, invade and sneak their mercenary camp for free, or like sneak start a boss on Cursed Hollow, sort of thing. So, but outside of that, honestly, I would just try to play comfort and standard. Maybe prioritize things that rush the boss down really quick, because if you see the other team start their boss, if you're out of position, you need to go start your boss immediately, and race it down quickly. But outside of that, I would just wouldn't get too cute with it, because I think that with players who are not at pro level, not having Fog of War on the minimap is not as much of a buff as it seems like it would be.
And I guess too, when you're playing at a pro level, you've got a pretty good idea, even though you can't see where the other teams are, you have a pretty good idea of where they probably should be. So maybe this is just bringing us up to like that pro level to have that kind of intuition that we'd lack in our lower levels of play, non-professional. Mystic, what strategies, without giving away too much of your, I don't think you're actually playing in this game, but what kind of strategies would you employ here?
I think Trent makes a good point where you mainly want to play comfort, because if it comes down to like those end game team fights, right, the mini map being revealed doesn't really help you that much, right? And you can't like cheese brush. So, you know, if you just play comfort or like play for a team fight oriented comp, then it'd just be the same thing as a normal game, except for the early game, like maybe Fog of War cheese that you might be able to do just because, you know, you're looking at the mini map and the other people aren't. But I would say that, yeah, you could probably draft a stealthy just for the extra surprise factor. Like if during the game, you know, they get more inclined to using the minimap just because it's that much of a buff, they're like looking at it more. But then, you know, you introduce that stealthy in there, it's like that can't be seen on the minimap, and they're like, whoa, I'm really surprised, and throw them off their game.
We've got another QM quote unquote mode too, all assassins on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Only assassins are allowed in this game mode and no variant. It's a standard mid-ban draft format. I think this is pretty interesting because everyone, almost by definition, will have a lot of damage, probably be a little squishier. I think mages are going to be extraordinarily risky because, you know, likely you're going to have some higher mobility, but no tanks or frontline really to protect you. I could see a lot of heroes that like you'll have to cobble together some sort of frontline, maybe with a healer and like a melee assassin that might be able to fulfill that role. Like maybe like an Uther can kind of almost off tank, and then maybe you can find like a Thrall almost too, which can provide a little bit of peel, a little bit of engage. Yeah,
I don't think
all assassins, how can you have healers?
Oh, you're right. What am I talking
Battle
about?
Uther.
Battle
Go
Uther.
Battle Uther.
Uther in full damage
Burning Rage
mode.
Divine Storm.
I don't know how
Holy
I didn't
shock.
notice that. So, Kate, no Uther, no. So either way, you're still gonna have to have that like tanky front line to provide the peels and bulk up front. I'd imagine is where I'd probably go with it. I mean, I guess there's an argument for just going heavy dive and just not having to worry about the front line, since you know they're not going to be as tanky as a traditional tank. I don't know. So since I screwed up this game mode, what do you guys think? What do you think? Would you go with for all assassins here, Trent? Why don't we start with you?
I'm on this one. I would commit hard to just fighting and killing. You don't have heals. You don't have protection. Thrall is not a frontliner. He's gonna get ripped to shreds. Maev is going to get ripped to shreds. You just don't have that protection for anyone who can even pretend to be a frontliner because you don't have a healer. So you just have to commit. Don't give away resets to the other team and go blow them up because there's nothing to protect them. And the second anyone steps out of line, everyone's going to die real fast.
You concur, Mystic? Does it all dive all the time? Is that the way you think you should go here?
Yeah, you have to go pretty much like almost all damage. I think resets are really strong, like Genji, the Li Ming, and then I think Greymane is really strong here because he does have Go for the Throat, and that does quite a bit of burst damage, and it is also quote unquote a reset because, you know, if you kill someone with it, you get another one. So yeah, those are strong.
And I think it's interesting that we put this onto a Tomb of the Spider Queen, one of the smaller maps in the game too. So there's going to be a lot of rotations, a lot of gank potential, catching people out. So it's going to be a game where hopefully, I mean, everyone will be playing a little bit more hesitantly because I think that's the way you're going to have to play a little safer to make sure you don't get ganked, because ganking is going to be the name of the game. Next game mode is Reverse Draft on Braxis, and this one tripped us up last time in the finals. We're doing a 2-lane map too, which makes it even more interesting. So the way Reverse Draft works is you draft your team, you do mid bans as normal, but then after you're done, you switch heroes with the other team. So you're actually drafting for the opponents. This adds so much more complexity to the draft, because usually you draft strong heroes and counters to the heroes the other team picked. But in this case, you're trying to pick heroes that are countered by the other team, I guess, so that you can kind of pick bad heroes for the team that you've somehow found yourself taking because it's the team the other team's given you here. Like, insert mind explosion here. Like, I feel like it's almost so hard to wrap your head around. It's almost impossible to strategize here, except, you know, maybe giving other heroes that might just be horrible in general. But Heroes is a fairly balanced game. There aren't many heroes that are quote unquote just bad all around. So I mean, I don't know, like, what Trent, you're giving me a look here. There's no heroes that are bad all around. Who would you give then? Who would you start by giving to the other team here? I mean, I guess like there's some like the gimmicky picks which I expect to be banned first out, like maybe your Lost Vikings and maybe an Abathur on a 2-lane map. But outside of that, what are you thinking?
You click specialist and then you pick 5 of them and you give them to the enemy team and then you win.
That's simple, eh? Mystic, you think it's that easy?
It's that simple.
Well, I mean, yes. And along with that, you know, you could draft them heroes that are really hard to play so that, you know, not everybody's hero pool is like everything, right? So it's not like, it's not an HGC where everybody just can play everything at, you know, diamond level or higher. So just give them like heroes that are really hard to play, like maybe give them a single healer Ana on their team or something like that. Give them stuff like those.
I feel like that backfired last time because we drafted Rexar for the other team, being like, who plays Rexar? It turns out they had a Rexar player on their team, and they picked for us an Alarak, who you ended up playing. You're like, okay, I'll take Alarak, and you ended up mopping up pretty well as the Alarak. So, I mean, I feel like that strategy can definitely backfire if you don't know the other team very well. And I think one thing we did is we tried to overload them with support. I think we gave them 2 support, thinking like, okay, well, we'll give them too many support so that they don't have enough damage with the Rexar too. And it turns out they still found a way to blow us up because they had so much self-sustain. I feel like, you know, maybe on the 2-lane map there's validity to like the just specialist idea, but then again, like maybe that lane pressure is just gonna be something you're not gonna be able to respond to if the other team gives you like no lane clear. It's on Braxis. Maybe they're gonna
those are bad. Let's just give them a lot of damage this time, and then we'll take them out because they have no sustain.
Yeah, actually, with it being on Braxis, you may not want to just go specialist, because if you choke them out of wave clear, you win the game in 6 minutes. So
if you get the objective, right, there's just so much to think about here. Like, you might give them, be like, okay, we'll give them no wave clear, but then you're getting like presumably lots of single target ish damage. I mean, I guess there's different ways to go with that, but you know, if they end up winning both points and they get all the Zerg waves, then it doesn't matter if you've got the wave clear as much as if you have to defend those Zerg waves. So definitely interesting. Any heroes, Mystic, that you'd try and force on to the other team here?
Give them Lost Vikings if it's not banned. Give them Ana if it's not banned. I don't know. Maybe they have a super Ana player, but even then, like it's kind of hard to play Ana or single healer Ana. So
yeah, and even like the Rexar pick too. Rexar is good in that top lane. He can hold that point pretty well. So I don't even know if that's a pick that you want to necessarily give to the other team, assume they have a Rexar player to play with. This, I think, is going to be one of the more complicated drafts and should come up with the most interesting team comps out of it. Okay, next game mode is monsters versus humans. This is the first game mode that we're talking about that's thematic. So one team can only select monsters. The other team can only select humans. And we actually don't have a list of valid heroes you can pick for either or, because you can change your skins to make them work on the other side. Like, for instance, you can take Tychus, who's a human, and make him infested Tychus. Suddenly he's a monster. Or like you've got other things too, like Stukov. I mean, I guess he's kind of a monster then because he's infested, but you know, there's all these like question marks that you have, and we're leaving it very open-ended to debate during the draft phase, which might shoot everyone in the foot if they have to make these last moment decisions. We won't talk too much about the strategy here because I'm assuming you're probably going to end up getting mostly standard comps, but most of the interesting picks I think here are going to be in finding those skin combinations that give you a more expanded hero pool. So I mentioned infested Tychus. Mystic, do you have any ideas of skin combinations that might lead to an interesting monster versus human team swap here, or eligibility?
This is kind of out of my field of expertise because I don't use like a lot of skins very often. So, you know, not really.
Well, I guess you can go things like even God, I'm blanking here. I had some Arthas. Arthas, you can go Crown Prince Arthas, who's a human, but then he can also swap him over to the monster side if he's the Death Knight Arthas, or standard, I guess, whatever you call Lich King Arthas too. But I mean, this as well as the other game modes too. We've got StarCraft versus Diablo and Horde versus Alliance that can be based on what synergies you decide to go with. So the next one up on the dock is all supports on Sky Temple. Now we're only allowing supports defined by Blizzard, but Medivh is also fair game since we consider him actually a support. He shouldn't have been a specialist in the first place. So what do we think about this one? Even though Medivh's allowed, I feel like he's probably not the strongest option because he counters dive, and you probably won't have a ton of dive in an all supports game. And also plenty of heals to go around. Trent, I mean, myself and Mystic played in this game, so we know a little bit about how it goes down, but like, what kind of healers are you or supports are you gonna be picking here? Are you just gonna be focusing on damage?
I think you're gonna be focusing on not being able to be killed and wave clearing as much as you can to be ahead for the temple phase. Because it's Sky Temple, you need someone who can sit on the point and tank damage. So you've got to take some of the Uther type folks. But I actually think Medivh is probably God tier in this because there's no threat of losing your Master's Touch sacks. Like, you ain't getting killed anytime soon. You're not getting caught out and bursted down. So you can stack away for a year and a half with like absolutely no fear.
Interesting. So maybe like before, one of our Achilles heels in this was the Stim Drone Bloodlust Archon, but maybe we're talking Ana doing her nano stim or whatever it's called on Medivh's machine gun Medivh here. Like maybe that's the key to success. Maybe I'm completely wrong saying Medivh was trash. Maybe he's, like Trent says, the way to go. Mystic, what are your thoughts?
I think Uther is still very strong because he can do damage and he does healing at the same time, and he's kind of a tank too, so that's all pretty good. I think Lily actually might be kind of strong here just because she's kind of in the same boat where she can't really tank, but she can do a lot of damage and a lot of healing as well. So
yeah, I
can Karazim go punch build? Is he allowed to pick the Iron Fist trait?
He can. There's no restriction on that. That's for sure.
Interesting.
Much like Varian in the All Warriors game, you can go Twin Blades or Colossus Smash if you want. I mean, that's something I think we actually played with Karazim last time, and we lost. We took Karazim, we took Uther. We thought we were doing everything right. We took even Tyrande too. We tried to take all the high damage ones, and we ended up losing to the Stim Bloodlust Archon at the end of the day.
You can't kill him.
No,
you still don't have enough damage.
And that was pre-Archon nerf. I think Archon was overpowered at that point too, so it just felt oppressive. Next is more of an esports focused hyper carry on Dragonshire. Hyper carry is something you see often, or at least you see in esports, but you don't necessarily see it as often in your pub leagues. So here you're only allowed one assassin as defined by Blizzard on each team. So this is again the mid-band draft format, and I'm curious to see how this goes, like how the hyper carries are going to be selected in the draft. You take them early, because if you take them early, your source of damage can potentially be countered with all the rest of the picks on the other team, or you take them late and risk getting choked out because there aren't a ton of true hyper carries in the game. What do you think, Trent? What's going to happen here in the draft?
I run Triple Warrior and win the video game because all the hyper carries suck right now.
We need you to coach our team. Just pick 3 warriors and win. That's all you got to do. So, but if that's the case, like you still have to find that source of damage. You just rely on other sources. Like you rely on maybe like you say triple frontline, like you taking like kind of 2 bruisers to go along with your hyper carry, quote unquote. Is that the way you'd go here?
I mean, as we've talked about a billion times, Blizzard's role system is dumb and bad. So like there are plenty of warriors who are warriors that do plenty of damage. I mean, like Diva in pilot form is a ranged carry. Like you go laser build and you can shoot things pretty darn well. You take Sonya, you can shred through people. You get plenty of wave clear with stuff like Blaze. There's a lot of different ways you can still find plenty of damage on your team by running 3 warriors and like single support and a tracer, and just ripping through people and being hard to kill yourselves.
What about specialists, Mystic? Do you think they could kind of fill a role here? Because we've got some specialists that may have been miscast and are more mage-ish, like we've talked about earlier in the show.
I mean, if you want to run, one assassin of your choice and then pick like some supporty heroes and then also pick Hammer because she's a specialist, but she's also kind of an assassin too, then, you can do that. So you would essentially have 2 assassins, right? Except one of them's a quote unquote specialist.
So, what heroes do you think are going to be strong here? Are you looking outside of the hyper carry role, Mystic, when you're prioritizing?
I mean, the thing about it is, when I saw hyper carry, I always think of Tyrande because she has the Darnassian archery talent, and I think that's still pretty strong. And then if you just combine that with Morales, or the stim drone, then she can actually do a lot of work there. So combine that with another assassin, and then I think you can pick kind of standard there if you want. You can pick a tank, and then just stuff like that.
So name of the game is to cheat to win. Find heroes that are classified poorly and slot them into an assassin role here to find that damage. Maybe we'll have to revise the rule set here to make it so there's no specialist or something. Because I mean, yeah, you can take your Karazim, right? Use him as a source of damage by going punch Karazim, even if you wanted to too. Okay, next on the docket is StarCraft versus Diablo on Warhead Junction. This one's interesting because there's no bans. You have to choose on one team only StarCraft characters, on the other team only Diablo characters, and there's not a ton of them. So you gotta get really interesting with your skin swapping. So I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, Diablo's only got a couple of supports, Monk and Ariel, and StarCraft only has Medic, Tastar, and Stukov. So right there, you're already pigeonholing yourself into specific kinds of comps. I mean, Diablo's got the old school Ariel Vala comp, I guess. StarCraft also has only 3 native tanks, too, Blaze, Dahaka, and Artanis. And if you look at StarCraft's side of it, their assassin pool is kind of wonky. Like, if you're looking at the assassins, you've got Alarak, Tychus, Raynor, Kerrigan, Nova, and Zeratul. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting play here just because you've got a very limited hero pool. It kind of reminds me of, the beta when you only had, whatever it was, 30 heroes to pick from. That's about the case here, too. And you've only got about half of those to pick from. Interesting hero choke here. I'm glad we don't have bans because that'd make things a little too choked out, I think. Given Diablo and StarCraft restrictions, Trent, is there any sort of combos you like here? Is the Ariel Vala one that you'd prioritize it for your Diablo pretty much because you don't have any other choices, or how would you approach this too, especially with this healer choke?
So the Ariel Vala is weaker now in the HGC, largely because of the introduction of other heroes like Genji, Hanzo, and Tracer. Since none of those are viable at all, Ariel Vala suddenly does actually have some potential. The challenge is you don't have a really good second support for the Vala, so you probably need to run that with running Tyrael as your second support. On the other side, you can just literally, on the StarCraft side, you can just run a Tempo Storm comp. Like Blaze Dahaka Kerrigan with Stukov and Zeratul, or some kind of fifth. That's just a Tempo Storm comp.
It's one interesting skin combination. I was trying to do a little research to come up with a good, clever one here. You can actually make Tracer a StarCraft hero by going Ghost Tracer, so you can get the Tracer Tastar combo. Is something you could do if you do that synergy here. So that there are some interesting things you could do to pull something like that off. Mystic, what are your thoughts here before we get into the final one, before we wrap the show up?
Oh man, I really like game modes like this because one, I'm a StarCraft fan, but two, I really like the themed, just like themed battles, because that's kind of what I went into Heroes of the Storm for. I wanted to see like, oh, like look at all these Warcraft heroes and they're all fighting against like the StarCraft or the Diablo heroes, and that really, it's really fun for me.
Yeah, and I imagine Dahaka might be a highly prioritized one, given that it's on Warhead Junction, and we do have a limited number of global heroes, given the fact that it is StarCraft versus Diablo as well. Final game mode is Horde versus the Alliance. Very similar to StarCraft versus Diablo, except I feel like you've got a little bit more choice here. One team can only select Warcraft Horde heroes. The other team can only select Warcraft Alliance heroes. But neutral Warcraft characters, like not villains, so you can't pick like Ragnaros, for instance, but like Pandarians or Brightwing are allowed to be on either side, or Alexstrasza as well, I guess, is neutral. It's standard mid-band draft, and this is where the geeks get the glasses on and start typing in chat, because, oh man, did chat ever get crazy as soon as we started doing this with all the different, like, oh yes, that should be valid, no, that shouldn't. They used to be on the Horde, now they're on the Alliance, this and this and that. I couldn't believe how crazy it got. Just going over the chokes here. Supports are surprisingly neutral, actually. Lili, Brightwing, and Alexstrasza, I guess you can make an argument for, could be on either side. Alliance only has 3 tanks, native Muradin, Varian, and Chen. There's a limited assassins pool for both sides. You might need to get creative with their skin combos, especially considering we've got bans here. And your immortal race heroes, Greymane is on the Alliance side, Zul'jin's on the Horde side, but outside of that, Vala's not allowed, Li Ming's not allowed, Hanzo's not allowed, Malthael's not allowed. So are Greymane and Zul'jin top bans here, Trent? What do you think?
I mean, Zul'jin's not very good, so probably not, but Greymane definitely.
But when you lack heroes to pick from, that makes other heroes better all of a sudden too.
It's very true.
Yeah.
You could potentially see some Zul'jin shenanigans, though I would probably say if I'm on the Horde side, I'm just going to play for Engage, because I also get ETC. And
that's the Horde style, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just go in and kill them rather than trying to race the Immortal, and the Alliance will be like, no, we're going to sit back here and shoot the Immortal, and it's going to be fun.
Definitely have to have Garrosh on one side and Varian on the other. That should be mandatory. What do you think, Mystic?
I think this will be really interesting, because I think Zul'jin is actually fairly good on Battlefield of Eternity, just because he does like high immortal damage. So I could see him getting picked.
See, Trent, some people think Zul'jin's good. At least on this
I have to keep remembering that this is a game with not top-tier optimized teams, so player skill plays a much bigger role. That's the other thing. Like with all of these compositional things, ultimately you just want to play what your players are good at. Like you don't want to get too cute in any of these draft scenarios, because if you put somebody on something that they're not comfortable with, even if it's an on-paper better composition for the style, if dude sucks at Abathur, you don't want to stick him on Abathur.
Just call me the master of quick match.
Everyone's gonna try and get cute. That's the name of the game, and I hope we see some cute stuff. Speaking of cute, Hanzo can actually flip over to the Horde side too, because there is a Blood Elf Hanzo skin. That's one that I kind of earmarked when I was looking into the skins here. So Hanzo can still be picked up on the one side if that skin choice is available. But I think this is probably where we're going to wrap up the show, and I'm pretty excited for this tournament. There's a lot to wrap your head around, and I'm sure the teams are going to come up with all sorts of different compositions and draft choices that we didn't even consider today. So if you want to take a look at any of this, just Saturday, February 24th, head over to this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/trollsgg. There's going to be tons of giveaways and everything on stream too, and great casters, great personalities. It's going to be a fun time. But before we sign off for the show, we got to thank our chieftain, Super Dave, for pledging his support to the Trolls on Patreon. If you'd like to be a chieftain or help support the show, you can do so over at patreon.com/trollsgg. We've got some great stretch goals over there we're getting closer to. But thanks everybody for listening to the Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast, which we stream live on this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/trollsgg, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. If you're looking for LiQuiuD, who isn't here today but will join us this weekend, he's going to be on the production side, but also next week on the Nexus Trolls. You can follow him over at LiQuiuD, that's LiQiuD GG on Twitter. Mystic, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
And you can find me at DazHots. How about you, Trent? I feel like you've got a pretty solid internet presence. Where are all the things that you'd like to plug?
Follow me at Trent_esports for all sorts of things, some of them even Heroes of the Storm related. Biggest thing for me is go watch Entry Level Esports. Daz and I work pretty hard on making that show as good as it can be, where we read all the feedback. I've really enjoyed having that creative outlet to speak my mind about a topic related to continue to grow and be part of what we do every week. So if I can just plug one thing, go watch every episode of Entry Level Esports that exists, share it with all your friends, watch it on multiple different IP addresses so that it gets more views, and I will consider you a valid person.
And hopefully people consider you a valid person because you were robot-y there for about half of that, but I think we got the gist. It does also give me the opportunity to spend about an hour a week one-on-one with Trent while as we produce and record that show, which has been great, and we've been getting great feedback for Entry Level Esports, so definitely check that out. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. You can also visit our website at trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls to watch us some past shows, along with past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TrollsGG. If you're looking for more information about Creators of the Storm, you can go over to trolls.gg/COTS. That's for Creators of the Storm. To find more information there, including schedule. For announcements about the show and general Heroes of the Storm news, you can follow us on Twitter at @TheNexusTrolls, or you can follow our TrollsGG channel at TrollsGG. If you want to hang out with our community in-game, you can /join TrollsGG, or you can also join our Discord channel, which might be a little less important now for in-game chat, since we've got in-game chat. That's at trolls.gg/Discord. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls@TrollsGG. So everybody, thanks for listening. Trent, thanks for joining us again. Have a great week. Cue the outro.